Nadati swapadantikam. Okay. I'll hopefully get the computer thing settled by this weekend. So apologies for again doing this on my phone with minimum competence as my old age starts to come through with using technology. We left off on verse 40. So the Devatas have criticized the speculative theologians who have their various theories about God, but aren't informed by bhakti and the revelation that bhakti affords the soul. And they accept the form of the Lord as presented by the devotees, and then the devotees were glorified yesterday. So now, having glorified the Lord, they express their desire in a few verses. So starting with verse number 40. So we're going to read that verse. It says here, O Lord, O personified three worlds, Father of the three worlds, O strength of the three worlds, in the form of the Vama incarnation, O three-eyed form of Nrsimhadev, O most beautiful person within the three worlds. So these are the first parts of the Sanskrit, if you look at it. Tri Bhuvana Atma Bhavana. So they glorify the Lord as the Atma of the Tri Bhuvana, of the three worlds. So the three worlds is the home, just like the body is the home of the soul, if you will. So also the three worlds is the home of the Supreme Lord. So this is very, this calling the Lord is like this is very calculated in one sense, because they want to say that his home is disturbed right now by the Vitrasura demon. This house is being disturbed by this demon, and therefore you should put your house in order. That is the work of the avatar, after all, is it not? Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chaduskritam dharma samstarpanartaya samavami yuge yuge. The avatar in general comes through the gateway of Vishnu. So Vishnu is the form of the Lord that is the deity of the maintenance quality of nature. So nature is getting out of, control. So the avatar appears in order to see to its maintenance. So Tri Bhuvanatma Bhavana, they're referring to the Lord as the soul of the world, which means to say that the world is like his house. So you get your house in order. It is being disturbed by this demon. So get it in order. This speaks to the idea that the names of the Lord that we chant are congruent. Of course, the names that we find dear are congruent with the nature of our heart. And the form of the Lord that will appear before us is in, the personified form of that name, so to speak. Evam vrita swapriya namakritya jatanurago druta chitta uchai. Being fixed in a vow to wander the world without attachment and to sing the glories of our Lord without inhibition. Evam vrita, that is the vrita of a sadhaka. Then specifically through the names that are dear to such a sadhaka, swapriya namakritya, one should develop prema jatanurago druta chitta uchai, which melts the heart. So of course they're calling out names of the Lord that are related to the material energy, precisely because their interest isn't prema. And so all the names of the Lord, as you can see, they're related to the three worlds. So this first name is particularly interesting, the way that the commentators commented on it. So Tri Bhuvanatma Bhavana. You are the soul of the three worlds. This world is your house. Get it in order. They also refer to the Lord as Tri Vikrama, which is a name for Vamandev. In 3 steps, he takes over the whole, not in even 3, in 2 steps. He was able to take the entire cosmos in 2 steps. So Tri Vikrama, you are that Lord who has, in his steps, he has the power to control or take over the 3 worlds. Trinayana, Trinayana means the three eyes. So Prabhupada's translation says, oh, three-eye form under Singhadev. So that's interesting. And Triloka Manohara Anubhava. So, O Lord, who's Anubhav, if you have realization of the Lord, he stills the mind, Manohara. Manohara means he stills the mind of the three worlds. So anyone who sees that form, their mind is stolen. They're attracted to the Supreme Lord. Okay. So that's the first part of the translation. All names related to the three worlds because their desire is precisely connected to the three worlds. So they have chosen their names carefully in that sense. So we should also choose our names carefully in a sense. Even when we chant, for those who get the Diksha and we get the Gopal mantra, 18-syllable Gopal mantra. So the Gopal mantra has basically three deities are there in the Gopal mantra. Krishnaya, Govindaya, and Gopijana Vallabhaya. And it is mentioned that Mahaprabhu, he chanted the 10-syllable Gopal mantra, which is Gopijana Vallabhaya, because he was in the Madhurya Rasa. So he chanted that mantra, that Gayatri mantra specifically. As described there, that Krishna is like general name for God, a general name for Krishna, which can refer to his form in Braja, but also in Mathura and Dwarka. When you refer to Krishna as Govinda, that name is more closely connected to Braj. And so those who are situated in Sambandha, Rupa forms of devotion, they may focus on that part of the mantra when chanting the Gopal mantra. Maybe they even only chant that part of the mantra. And then Gopijana Vallabhaya, one who's the dearmost of the Gopijanas. So that name is connected to the Madhurya Rasa. So for those who are in Kamarupa Bhakti, like Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then they may zoom in on that particular name. So one should choose one's names carefully. You know the verse from Shishashakal, Nam Nama Kari Bahudha, Nija Sarva Shaktis, Tatarapitana Yamitasmana Nakala, Etadrasi, Tabakripa, Bhagavama Mapi, Duradaiva Mindrishami Hachanina Anuraga. You know this verse. So there they're saying that Bhagavan has compassionately distributed his names to this world. The names that are filled with all his Shaktis, now Nama Kari Bahuda, Nija Sarva. So many names he's distributed, and they're filled with all his Shaktis, and there are no hard and fast rules for chanting them. So he has done this out of Kripa. So Mahaprabhu himself gives a purport to these shlokas and Kaviraj Goswami Chaitanya Charitamrita. So when commenting on this particular shloka, only two Bengali statements are there from Mahaprabhu to Ramananda Roy Swarup Damodar. He says the reason there are so many names, this is a very interesting statement. The reason there are so many names of God is because there are so many desires of the living entities. I can't pull it up so readily because my incompetence with the iPhone, it will be betrayed immediately. So for those of you who can look it up, you can see it, but it's very interesting. Mahaprabhu says the reason that the Lord has distributed so many names is because there are so many desires of the living entities. So that means there's a direct correlation between the names that we chant and the desires that we have inside. There's some relationship that's there, or we may say that there should be some relationship there. There should be the desire that we have, especially our desires for transcendence. But here in the Devata's case, it's the desire for the three worlds. So they've carefully selected their names. Tri Bhuvanatma Bhavana, Tri Vikrama, Tri Nayana, Tri Loka Manohara Anubhava. They know what names they're chanting because they're very clear about their desire. And so that clarity of desire has allowed them to embrace certain names of God with fervor, with devotion, mixed devotion, but devotion nonetheless. So there's a relationship there. And that is the ultimate, you can say, limit of Sambandha Gyan. We always say Sambandha Gyan, and it always strikes us as like a dry philosophical principle. Sambandha Gyan. It just means know the philosophy. That's what we mean by Sambandha Gyan. But Sambandha, the real meaning or the ultimate limit of Sambandha is an awareness of your Sambandha with Krishna. Sambandha actually means, simply put, it just means Krishna. And your awareness of your relationship to that Krishna. Or in the case of a sadhaka, the awareness of the aspire to relationship with Krishna. And that being the central kama that is fueling your bhakti, because bhakti is also fueled by desire. Anyabilashita shunyam, right? Anyabilashita shunyam means what? That other desiredness should be zero, right? That is the meaning of anyabilashita shunyam. So desiredness means when the heart is filled with a particular desire, that is called desiredness. Sometimes we have other desires, like desire to go to the bathroom. That desire to go to the bathroom doesn't put you outside of Shuddha Bhakti. But if all your desire was just about going to the bathroom, that would be weird and also put you outside of Shuddha Bhakti, because now you have desiredness for going to the bathroom. So desires that come up in the course of psychophysical existence, but that aren't core for you, that it doesn't put you outside of Shuddha Bhakti. But desiredness should be zero. What type of desiredness? Other desiredness. Oh, so is there desiredness that is wanted? Yeah, this desiredness. The desire for bhava, bhakti. Bhaktya, sanjataya, bhaktya. So all the commentaries quoting that. So there should be some desiredness there. That is called sambandha jnana. When you have a desiredness for an aspire to relationship with Krishna, that is called desiredness. Then when you chant Hare Krishna, it'll be very nice. Until then, it'll feel a little empty. Because the very fuel of the sadhana bhajan is desiredness. What is that? In Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's own composition, verse from the Bhagavatam, when he's describing the sequence of development of bhakti, and beginning with Satam Kripam. So the first verse he identifies 5 items, right? First is the mercy of devotees, Satam Kripam. Then the service of devotees, Mahaseva. Then there's Shraddha, Shushusho. There's a Shushusho, Shraddha. Then there's surrender to the Guru, Punya Tirtha. And then he says there's Bhajana Spriha. Before there's actual bhajan, the practice, there's a desire for bhajan. Bhajana Spriya is first. Then after Bhajana Spriya, then you do the bhajan. That is the next verse. What is the next verse? Shrimvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana and so on. So anyway, it was just an interesting point. Mahaprabhu was saying he's distributing so many names because there's so many desires of the living entities, informing us that there's a direct link between, or should be a link between the desire we have and the names that we chant, or the names that we find dear to our heart in which we can't but chant. So the Devatas, of course, they've carefully selected their names, very interestingly enough. Okay, so the rest of the passage continues. Everything and everyone, including human beings, and even the Daitya demons and the Danavas, is but an expansion of your energy, O supremely powerful one. First of all, this part. So he said, Tavaiva vibhutayo, ditija, danujadayashchapi, tesham. So all of them, who are all of them? The sons of the demons, ditija, the sons of the demons, the Danavas, these various historic races. Also the humans, also as devatas, all of them, we are vibhutis. So we are vibhutis of the absolute truth. All are the Lord's vibhutis. So in this sense, if everyone's the Lord's vibhutis, then why should the Lord favor them, the devata vibhutis, over the asura vibhutis? The Lord, after all, sees with equal vision, right? Samoham sarvabhuteshu namedvishyosi napriya. So why should he favor the Daitya vibhutis over the Devata vibhutis? That question may come up. So they have an answer for that. They say to this thing here, O supremely powerful one, you have always appeared in your forms as the various incarnations to punish the demons as soon as they become very powerful. You appear as Lord Vamandev, Lord Rama, and Lord Krishna. You appear sometimes as an animal like Lord Boar, sometimes a mixed incarnation like Lord Nrsimhadev, and Lord Hayagriva, and sometimes an aquatic like Lord Fish, Lord Fish, and Lord Tortoise. Sorry, that sounds funny. They say, oh, what is this beautiful thing on your altar? That is Lord Fish, Lord Tortoise. Okay, so the different avatars of the Lord. So assuming such various forms, you have always punished the demons and Danavas. We therefore pray that your lordship appear today as another incarnation, if you so desire, to kill the great demon Vitrasura. So why should the Lord favor the Daita, the Devata Vibhutis over the Daita Vibhutis? They're all Vibhutis of the Lord, and he sees all his Vibhutis equally. So why you should favor it? So they want to make this point, Upakrama Samayo, because this is they're flourishing now, and this is not the time for their flourishing. So this is Devata's point. They're creating some disturbance to your work of Shrishti Leela. And therefore, because you come to set that order, to set that world or nature back in order, and it's being disturbed now by the Devatas. So although they are your vibhutis, and therefore you don't have any special predilection, toward us above them, still they're disturbing your work right now. And you appear in your avatar forms. Again, remember that the avatar forms, aside from Krishna, all the avatar forms are concerned with the maintenance of the universe. It is the avatar work is the work of maintenance, right? Because he's as we say, the presiding deity of the Sattva Guna. So his work is the work of maintenance in this material world. And so they're asking him to appear as the avatar. So this is this long line here, that by your Maya, Swatma Maya, Sura Naga Mriga Mishrita, Jalachara Kritibhi. By your Maya, you appear in various forms, as a Devata, like Vamandev, as a human being, like Krishna and Rama, as an animal, like Lord Fish and Tortoise. Mrishrita means mixed forms, like Narsinka and Hayagriva. So he's giving all these different avatar forms the Lord appears as. And then he says, Yata paradam dandam dandadhara dharta evam. So, according to their aparad, they're creating some disturbance to your Shrishti Leela work. So according to that, you should appear and give chastisement. One who can give the chastisement should appear and give chastisement. And that is the work of the avatar. So just as you do this previously, we have seen many of these pastimes. So also, Evamapi, Bhagavan Jahi Twashtram Uta Yadi Manase. So also, you kill this Vitrasura, the son of Twashta, you kill him also, because he is a demon that is creating disturbance to the maintenance of the universe. So just as you appear in these other avatar forms, you also appear to kill this Vitrasura. So here in this verse, they're expressing their prayer. So Prabhupada takes it in the direction of the difference between a Sakama Bhakta and a Nishkam Bhakta, and how they deal with disturbances like Vitrasura. Every devotee will have some Vitrasura in their life. That's a fact. Most of us in the ISKCON will call it ISKCON, or we'll call it ISKCON management. Or you're in some community, you'll be some community leader. I think everyone has to encounter their Vitrasura in life. So how do you deal with that Vitrasura in life? It depends on your desire. So if you're a Sakama Bhakta or Nishkam Bhakta. So if you're a Nishkam Bhakta, the Nishkam Bhakta is peaceful, right? Krishna Bhakta Nishkama Anta Eva Shamta. The Krishna Bhakta is described as Nishkama. He had no separate desire. He had no other desiredness. Anyavilashita Shunya. So he is Shanta, he is peaceful, no disturbance at all when Vitrasura comes. Why no disturbance at all? Is because of the attitude that he takes towards Vitrasura, right? Basically, at the end of the day, the way we process suffering is according to our attitude. Or you say the most powerful way of dealing with suffering in this world, particularly suffering that you can't change. Of course, the Devatas, they have a sense that they can change it, so they're trying. And that is natural. But when we're dealing with suffering that we can't change, there's a Vitrasura in life that we won't be able to change. So the most powerful way of dealing with that suffering that you cannot change is to shift your attitude toward it. If you can discover the why of the suffering, then you can bear it easily, actually, quite easily. It's when we're not able to discover the meaning of the suffering, the why for it, we're not able to shift our attitude toward it, that the suffering is augmented. And our attempts for counteraction, as Prahlad Maharshi himself is telling, dukoshadam ta api dukam. Our attempts for counteraction is another type of suffering. Or as Narada Muni puts it in the Paranjan Leela, he says it's a shifting from the shoulder, the boulder of suffering from the shoulder to the head. But you don't get rid of the suffering. So Prabhupada's quoting in his purport, if you see it, he's quoting this Taitenu Kampam verse, a very famous verse, you know it well. Shukshamikshamaana, Bhunjana evatma kritam vipaka. Devava puber vidada namaste, jiveta yogukti pade sadayava. So this verse is simply speaking of a shift in attitude toward the suffering. So the Nishkama Bhaktas, they have this ability to shift their attitude at will. And as a result, they transform their suffering to a very glorious, that their suffering only serves to glorify them, basically, because their ability to shift their attitude toward it. But the Sakama Bhaktas, so we have a much harder time with this. So the Sakama Bhaktas, we are preoccupied with the work of counteracting. So we lose peace, and subsequently we lose happiness, because there's no question of happiness without the peace. We live lives largely, fixated on anxiety. So in this way we suffer. So the devatas, they're like this. They are Sakam Bhaktas. So they're suffering. And so they're wanting the Lord to relieve their suffering. They point blank ask God to remove that. So anyway, this is instructive. Of course, hearing this sort of thing, we say, well, then I'm a Sakama Bhakta. We can just resign ourselves to that. I'm a Sakama Bhakta and I'm going to go to God for that. And that is glorious also. As Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, there are 4 types of devotees that come to him in 2 categories, Sakama and Nishkama. But he says of all of them, Udhara Sarva Evaite, all of them are glorious, or Udhara. Udhara means like broad-minded. Akama Sarva Kamava, Moksha Kama, Udhara Dihi, having broad intelligence. Prabhupada translates the word Udhara in that Gita verse as magnanimous. Not sure, I don't really remember the purport to that. But in any case, even if you approach God as a Sakama Bhakta, that is also glorious. And Krishna appreciates that because it's an acknowledgement of God as the only shelter. And that is ultimately the glory of the Devatas here. But sometimes there's a suffering that you cannot change. Here, the Devatas can change it. So they bring their Sakama devotion to God and asking for him to make a very practical arrangement. But in the case of ourselves, if we resign ourselves to be Sakama Bhaktas, then we may also be sentencing ourselves to a life of frustration and anxiety, because God may not be changing our, daivas so quickly as in the case of the devatas. And so we are advised in the culture of the Bhagavatam to choose another way, at least so we can be peaceful. And that other way is to sacrifice our sakamas, our other desires, at the altar of a higher potential in us. We all accept that there's a higher potential in us. We do have the potential for pure bhakti. We wouldn't be coming to hear Srimad Bhagavatam unless we believed that we had some ability to actualize that potential. But we often, we're lazy and so on. So we often just resign ourselves to, our weaknesses, whatever. But when you have to suffer, that is a time to recalibrate. So Vitrasura comes in your life and then you are recalibrating. So you go to the God as a Sakama Bhakta. But Vitrasura isn't going away. So then what do you do in that situation? So you can sentence yourself to a life of anxiety by holding on to your desire. Or we can say, you know what? I do have this other higher potential in me that does require the sacrifice of these desires. And the immediate payoff of that sacrifice is peace. The peace from the vicious situation in life. And then the ability to grow into my potential, which I otherwise would not have been able to do. So like Haridas Thakur, you know, the story I always like to tell, when he goes into the prison and he blessed everyone. May you be like this only. And everyone immediately started lamenting. What type of sadhu are you? What type of blessing is this? He said, no, you misunderstand me. He had to explain because everyone looked so crestfallen to hear that blessing. So he had to explain, no, you misunderstand me. What I'm saying is that here you're not doing fruitive activity and you're always thinking of Krishna. So may you always be like this. Actually, in 2-3 days, you'll come out of the prison. But may you remain like this, always thinking of Krishna and not performing the fruitive activity. Queen Kunti in her prayers, I had to give class just before this. So she also tells me, Vipada Santu Tashashrat, that Tatra Jagat Guru Bhavato Darshanam Yashad Apunar Bhavadarshanam. She praying for the calamities. Why? She praying because that allows us to step into our potential of constantly remembering you. Otherwise, the opulence of life is like a cesspool that we sink into and we allow our higher potentiality to just drown in that. So anyway, Sakama Bhakti is also glorious. Udhara Sarva, it's according to Krishna. For the culture of Juda Bhakti that we encounter in the Bhagavatam, it is a type of cheating religion that is rejected by the Bhagavatam. So we're not encouraged as followers of the Bhagavatam to remain Sakama Bhaktas. But I want to say that whether we are Sakama Bhaktas because we're just like, being a little lazy, or we're Nishkama Bhaktas, or if we are Sakama Bhaktas, which I imagine many of us may be, or to some extent are, there's a mix at least. When Vitrasura comes in life, and he's coming, the son of Twasha is coming for us in some shape or some form. So that is an opportunity to recalibrate. And the sadhus of the Bhagavatam, not the Devatas, but the Parikshit Maharajas, the Queen Kuntis, there's so many other devotees in the Bhagavatam. They're teaching us how to we recalibrate in that situation. And so, okay, now we have to sacrifice something. Like Parikshit Maharaj says to the sadhus in first canto, he says, the Lord has kindly come to me in the form of a curse of a Brahmin boy. Why he do that? Because he knew that out of fear, I will leave the house. And I will become callous to material existence and actually just go and, do the bog something. So in a sense, he's saying God was kind of forcing me into my actual purpose in life, my real purpose, which was to help give birth to the Bhagavatam. That was actually my real purpose and mission in life. And Krishna forced me into that position by coming in this particular form. So the Bhagavatam is teaching us a good lesson there of recalibration when dealing with the Vitrasura in life. Okay. But the Devatas, they are Sakama Bhakta, so, they're like, we want a very practical solution. And luckily for them, because the Lord has already appeared before them, they will get it. So they're not going to sentence themselves to perpetual anxiety, but we might not be so lucky. So we might need to think a little bit deeply. Next verse, they say, I'm just going to read it. Let me see here. I'm not aware of the time because I only have using my phone. Next verse says, O Supreme Protector, O Grandfather, O Supreme Pure, O Lord, we are all surrendered souls at your lotus feet. Indeed, our minds are bound to your lotus feet in meditation by chains of love. Very wonderful statement here. Tava charana nalina yugala dhyananu bhada hridaya nigadhana. You can see it there, just at the beginning of the sentence there. So they're saying that their hearts are chained. Hridaya nigadhanam. Or anubhada, their hearts are bound by the chains of what? Dhyana. By the chains of dhyana. Our hearts are bound by the chains of meditation on the Charana Nalina Yugala, your two lotus feet. Why is that? Well, because we're suffering. So this is actually their glory. This is still the glory of the Devatas. They're saying that our hearts are bound by the chains of meditation on your two lotus feet. That's exactly what Queen Kunti's prayer is speaking to. That because of the calamity, I'm able to remember you. Oh, she used the word darshan, which means to see. Prabhupada speaks of darshan, his purport as smarna, as remembrance, which in one sense is the same thing. Remembering Krishna and seeing Krishna is non-different. Everything in relationship to the absolute is absolute. So Queen Kunti's prayer is precisely that point. Bhavato darshanam yashara punar bhava darshanam. Because I'm suffering the calamity, that calamity because of udipana, the stimulus or the stimulant for smarna or a profound remembrance of you. So this is the glory of the Devatas, because I don't know if we can all say we are able to be like that, where suffering comes into life and our hearts are bound to God in meditation. But often we may see ourselves also step into that. I certainly have an experience of that when that astrologer told me I was going to get MS. And I was in anxiety for 1 year, literally. But to my credit, I spent most of that year chanting like a lot of japa. And I didn't go to the Lord saying, hey, please don't let this happen to me. I kind of just accepted like, okay, this is going to happen. But, God, don't make it like so heavy where I can't chant. That would be bogus. Like, that would be bogus. I was talking like that to God in my inner dialogue. And I spent a lot of that year just chanting a lot of rounds. I talked to an astrologer recently who I respect because of his metaphysics is like really deep. And he was saying, maybe you were supposed to get MS, but because you chanted so much japa, it got changed. I mean, he says, that's not an impossibility. I was like, that's true. But because I didn't get it, I was like, I'll never trust astrologers again. They put me in anxiety for a year. But the point I'm making is more simple and straightforward, obviously, that this is the glory of the Devatas, that in their suffering, their minds really do go to Vishnu in a deep way. They're saying our hearts are bound by chains of meditation on your two lotus feet. And so what do they want from the Lord? Now, please manifest your incarnation. Of course, he's already appeared before them, but accept us as your own eternal servants and devotees. Be pleased with us and sympathetic toward us. By your love-filled glance with its cool and pleasing smile of sympathy, and by the sweet nectarian words emanating from your beautiful face, free us from the anxiety caused by this Ritrasura, who always pains the core of our hearts. The last phrase here, so they're wanting the Lord to look at them, they're wanting the Lord to smile at them. That itself can give a certain comfort. To go before the sadhu and just receive their glance and their smile. You may experience this sometimes when you have things that trouble the heart, and just going before the sadhu, you'll see that they vanish before you even get a chance to ask. I've had that experience on several occasions when I've been in anxiety about something, some doubt or whatever, some situation. And just by getting the glance of the devotee and their smile, you become passive. I remember being in Vrindavan, I was serving Angel Prabhu's deities, and I was having a really rough time. There was just like a period of a few weeks, I was really struggling in Vrindavan. And I remember doing deity, I would serve Angel Prabhu's deities like from 4 in the morning to 8 in the morning, 4 to 7 or 4 to 8, sometimes earlier, 3 to 7. And I was really, really having, like my mind was going buck wild. I couldn't control it. And I was suffering because of it. And I remember taking all the like Charnamrita water downstairs to throw it in one bush. And I was walking back upstairs, and this brahmachari who was wearing white, I didn't know him. I never even talked to him, ever. I was going upstairs, he was coming downstairs. He looked at me and he just embraced me. He gave me this heavy embrace. And he was like a chubby devotee, so it made it even extra like cute. And he embraced me and he smiled at me and said, Jai Srila Prabhupada, like that. That hug and smile and embrace, that lit up my day. I was like so pacify after that. Like my mind was going so wild and I was really suffering. I'm not even sure what it was that was causing the disturbance. It's a little embarrassing, but he just embraced me. And I remember being completely pacified just to see that and, experience that. I didn't know who this devotee is, never exchanged with him again after that to this day. Super tight. Like, I don't know how he got he lost the game. No, it wasn't that. I was strict in Vrindavan. I wasn't doing stuff like that. Anyway, so they're asking for the Lord to smile upon them, and to, give his cooling smile, his cooling glance at them, to share his words. Vigalita madhura mukha rasa amrita kalaya. They want the Lord to have drops of the amrita, of the rasa that comes from his mouth, which is very sweet. They want the Lord to say something to us. We're struggling, we're suffering. And in this way, antas tapam anagarhasi shamayitum. In this way, destroy the tapam, the heat in the heart, which is destroying our peace of mind. Of course, that tapam is the vitrasura, who's naturally entered their psyches and causing anxiety. So you destroy that. So this is also a very nice verse. Again, expressing their desire, which is clear for them. And I'm going to pause here because the next set of verses are combined, and I didn't get full time to assimilate them because I had to prepare the other class that I was giving for the Bhakti Center. So I tried to make this class a little interesting. I did the best I could. I'm going to pause here and see if anyone wants to contribute anything to anything. A conversation, some question or whatever, some comment. It's appreciated.
I have a quick comment / question. This point about this one of the last points you were making about how the demigods, they were saying how their minds are fixed on I forget the exact wording of the verse, on Vishnu's lotus feet or something like that. But it's as a result of their situation and their fear. And so, it's glorious, like you were saying. And you gave an example of like the astrologer giving you that advice. And I also remember when I was sick, like the one time that I've ever prayed sincerely in my life was when I was sick, and I went to Kishore and I just said, I just spoke like pretty candidly. I was like, you can't do this to me because I won't be able to do anything for you. Like if you keep this thing up, I just can't do anything. And it was like the most sincere prayer I've ever felt in my life. But it required such a serious situation for it to come out. And now, we have so many upheavals in our lives, but they're not life-threatening upheavals. It's not like every single thing that we go through that's bad is going to end us. So then because of these less bad upheavals, they're not bad enough for me to turn to Krishna, So it's kind of like this weird situation where it's like, you need something truly bad to turn to Krishna, but why can't I turn to Krishna in the situations that are not as bad? I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. Like, how
we can, but usually the issue is, as Queen Kunti will say also, a verse I often quote also, Jamaishraya Shutashri Ber Edamana Madapuma, Na Eva Arhati Abhidatumba, Twama Kinchana Gochara. So we can turn to Krishna when things aren't dark. So the verse I just quoted from Kunti, she says, may the calamities come again and again, because it causes remembrance. So a hypothetical question is brought up. Well, if that's not calamity for you, like calamity, that's not calamity. So what is the calamity for you? So then the next verse is spoken to say that material comfort is the calamity for souls in this world. And so she speaks this verse that those whose pride expands due to, aristocratic birth and beauty and wealth and education. Then she says, Na eva arhati abhidhatumbai. She said they cannot feelingly call out to you. So not that they can't call out to you, but they don't do it with the fervor because they feel sheltered and matter in some way. And so although there are upheavals in matter, we have our material shelters. And so it pretty much suppresses the fervor of the calling out to the Supreme Lord. So she said, this is a real calamity in this world. Only those who are Twama Kinchana Gochara. So she said, those who are at Kinchana, they are without the possessions. Basically, they don't have any material shelters. They can do it with the fervor. Now, you know how devotees like to speak about this. We call the Kinchana as the, it's not that you don't have possessions, but it's that you're not possessed by the possessions. Everyone's like, yay. Yeah, I like that definition of a Kinchana because we want our stuff. We want our stuff. Yes, we do. We want our stuff. So yeah, we like that other definition, that sort of like motivational speaking sort of, definition. And it's also true. It's also a true definition. It is not like it is untrue. That's what makes it appealing. There's truth to that. There are many great devotees like Yudhishthira Maharaj who had many things. His wealth was envied by the Devatas, we hear in the 12th chapter of the first canto. And yet, none of that wealth could satisfy him, just as a hungry person is not satisfied by a lot of opulence, because that hunger in his belly keeps him from being happy with even tons of opulence. So he was hungry for Krishna consciousness. The word uses, I think his mind was always fixed on Mukunda, actually. And therefore, he didn't find any attraction to his things. So that's a possibility, but if you're a normal soul, usually the way it happens is that things tend to suppress the fervor. So we have to experience, and just using not that we have to, but often it's the case, in order for us to turn in earnest, there has to be an experience of, I'm gonna use this language that I picked up from one of my books last year, dark light. Love this phrase. I picked it up from St. John of the Cross's Dark Night of the Soul book, which I read again after many years, toward the end of last year. Dark light. So, that darkness of suffering gives a certain illumination to the soul. That's what we're basically describing, a sort of dark light. So I don't think it has to be a life-threatening situation, though. That can also be very helpful in this regard if we don't actually die. It's helpful. But one thing that I'm observing personally is old age. And particularly the combination of old age and not actually having deep communion with God despite getting older. I can tell you right now, that's going to create a dark light experience, especially your kid gets older, or kids, if they're coming more. They leave you. They care very less about you, especially if they grew up in this culture. They won't care anything about you. So that hard work goes to, the garbage. Maybe you retire and the work you did was not that deep or meaningful in the ultimate scheme of things, even for you. It was just like a way to keep food on the table or whatever. I noticed that I'm observing that the old age is itself creating a dark experience. The old age combined with the lack of experience of something deeper or progressively deeper. It's not like you haven't had any deep experiences, but if it's not progressively deeper, if you kind of stagnate and you're in one spot, then that experience combined with you getting older and coming closer to death will create also a darkness, basically. And hopefully you can have a dark light, not experiences that will call you to, embrace bhakti with the real fervor. I find comfort as I'm myself going through such an experience. I do find comfort in Krishna saying that if one is situated even at the moment of death, and I'm finding that phrase to be a little bit comforting because, we basically live life, especially now we're so much accosted by comfort. Even if you're poor in America, you're rich, basically. You as long as you're not like dirt poor, you pretty much living good. Like I'm living good. I'm enjoying life. And the result of that enjoyment is a suppression of the fervor for devotion. That's a fact. But I'm also starting to see the beginning stages of like a darkness that's coming from getting older and not having progressively deeper experiences in Krishna consciousness. So I don't think it has to be life-threatening. Old age in this way might serve you also. Time factor. pushing you toward either a dark light experience or existential, destruction. and that will be up to us. So yeah, dark light is required. In some ways, that is also what Christian consciousness teaches us in its essence. The gopis in their separation are experiencing a dark light, which we call as Vipralambha Bhav. And that dark light is what we're encouraged to enter into if we want to find God. You have to find God by entering the darkness, if you will. So I don't know, these are some reflections on that. Good luck to us all. Sham Gopi saying something here. When me and my sister lost our most cherished association in which we were finding shelter for almost a decade, we tried to look for other devotees for shelter. We have been thinking lately that only Krishna can guarantee full infallible shelter. So instead of always looking horizontally, we must learn to look up vertically and also evaluate if our horizontal relationships are centered on the ultimate reality. We totally realize that. Absolutely, and well articulated. Shansai is saying, it's our birthday today, so good to hear about old age, not able to experience God, something deeper still, right? I need your prayers today and forever. I always want to express our gratitude to you for helping us grow a little bit every day. Oh, happy birthday to you all. Yes, our 40th birthday today. Congratulations. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I've been saying, I shared this last week, I believe, but Narayan Maharaj, I heard this from Abai. Narayan Maharaj told them once that he said, one day there may not be any books. One day there might not be any deities. He said, one day there might not even be any sadhu sangha. He said, but there will always be the name. That will always be available to you. So we haven't learned how to commune with the name by discovering our desiredness for a relationship with God. Then I said this last week, and I told the story in this regard that we're in a precarious position. That's a fact. And you never know. Krishna makes arrangement like Narada Muni. He was with the sages for 4 months and then boom, that was it. And then he had to internalize what he got from them for the rest of his life. So yeah, something to be said about that. Thank you for sharing that thought. It's sobering. It's very sobering, but it's a fact also. Okay, Hari Sham's got something, and Siddha Hari, I think's got something.
When you were speaking about the recalibration point, I don't know why my mind kept going back to the past of Srila Goswami getting those boils on his body, and then as a result, coming to the conclusion that he should now give up his life. And I was just wondering if you could comment on that pastime, because I mean, obviously he's doing it because he didn't, feel like he could offer service with a body that was diseased like that. But it's such an interesting pastime because, I don't know why he didn't think that, well, let me just wait for it to heal. And then beyond that, Mahaprabhu was like, well, I have many things to do with your body. Your body doesn't belong to you, and I'm going to use you to write books. And so just how he responded to that material sort of, suffering in a way that was so unusual and not expected. And then how Mahaprabhu sort of actually helped him see what, Mahaprabhu's vision is. And of course, Sanatana Goswami is a pure devotee, so it's not like he needs to be shown that. But still, I don't know, could you shed some light on that pastime? Because I don't think I fully understand what's going on. You're muted.
I said, I don't know if I understand what's going on. These devotees are mad exalted. He wanted to commit suicide because, Mahaprabhu was coming and embracing him every day. And so, he felt like I guess pun intended, like a sore spot in the movement of Mahaprabhu. And I can only imagine, because I don't know if I'll ever experience it, but I can only imagine what it would feel like to feel that you can't serve the Lord of your life. And perhaps it's the spirit of the gopis also when Krishna goes off to Mathura and they're experiencing pravas Vipralamba, and they feel that they can't serve the Lord of their life, and it kills them. Actually, they actually think about suicide, and the only thing that saves them is that Lord said, "I'll be back, in a few days." So they're always thinking about that tomorrow, and that tomorrow is keeping them alive. Otherwise, they also want to commit the suicide. So the feeling of being unable to serve, I guess I can try to imagine what that might feel like. You've given up everything. You sacrificed your empirical existence for service to the absolute reality, to your Guru Dev. And suddenly, due to some sort of extenuating circumstances, you feel like, or you actually can't render that service. So the very purpose of your existence has collapsed. So once there's a collapse of meaning, feelings of suicide are the natural sequence to the collapse of meaning. That's what's happening with the younger generations, not only younger, but what's happening with a lot of humanity today is there's a collapse of meaning. Because we've been living like nihilists for decades, just doing this sense gratification without any meaning or purpose. So now that's catching up to a lot of humanity, especially during that whole, lockdown period. So a lot of people had discovered that there was a profound collapse of meaning, which means suicide. That's the natural sequence or sequel to that feeling of the collapse. So, if we had to try to understand it empirically, there was a collapse of meaning, feeling that you can't render service to your Lord, which is the whole purpose for your existence. So he wants to commit suicide. And so he had to be reminded by Mahaprabhu that meaning was not lost. The meaning of his existence was not lost because of the extenuating circumstances of his body, and that there was much work to be done through him. And of course, it did help. I'm sure it helped that Mahaprabhu cured him, with his siddhi. He cured but before curing him, though, he gave him a meaning. So same with Arjuna. So Arjuna also, it doesn't say he's feeling suicidal, but his despondency is profound. And as he's sharing his despondency with Yudhishthira in 1st Canto, chapter 15. So at the end of that sequence, he says, "But now I'm remembering those words that were spoken to me on the battlefield. Desha Kala Artha Yuktani." And he says they are Artha Yuktani, means they are, the way Prabhupada translated it is very nice. They are impregnated with artha, with meaning. Those words are impregnated with meaning. And they're removing the tapa, the word used there also was tapa. They're removing the heat in the heart. The heat, in his case, the heat of the heart is the separation from Krishna. So he, rediscovers the meaning of his existence, and then he's able to navigate it. So that very kind of empirical explanation, who knows if it's right, definitely connects with what I was saying in class also, is that suffering, the way to deal with suffering that you can't change is to shift your attitude, which basically means you have to discover the meaning for it. And if you can discover that, you can navigate it gracefully. But a lot of us have a hard time doing that. We have our philosophy, which should make us more or less easily equipped to do so. But when it's happening to us in real time, somehow we lose access to that, ability. And that's when that feeling comes of, desperation, and it can get dark, maybe not suicidal, but something like, suicide's in the room. You're not really talking to suicide, but he's somewhere in the space, it feels like he's in the area somewhere. So it's a very dangerous thing when people lose the meaning for living. So that's the best I can do with that. It's highly speculative, but we'll call it philosophical speculation, which we're encouraged to do.
Right. Thank you.
Siddha.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Prabhu, a couple of things I wanted to share. Thank you, first of all, for speaking. One, I wanted to share that I was reading these prayers by Lord Shiva in the 4th canto, and there he is describing the form of the Lord, and the form he's meditating on has 4 hands, and he mentions, when I was reading this, I was thinking whether I should remember, try to memorize these verses or meditate on these verses or not, because it seems like this is not what I really aspire to. And then I was thinking that today you were mentioning these prayers by the Devas, where they're, apparently praying for removal of this difficulty. And Prabhupada is talking about it being a Sakama Bhakti. So, am I right? Trying to like here, hit an axe on my foot, or overshooting myself by thinking, hey, I'm not a Sakama Bhakta and I shouldn't aspire for these prayers, or one should put all attention only on the prayers of the exalted devotees who don't have any material desires and who are aspiring for in the form of Krishna in Vrindavan. What are your thoughts on this, Prabhu?
Yeah. Which prayers you were reading? You said prayers in the fourth canto, though, right?
Yeah, fourth canto, Lord Shiva is speaking to the Prachetas, and there, first he says, this mantra you should chant on, and then first he talks about different ways of purifying the Antakarana. He prays to all the demigods, and then he describes the form of the Lord for meditation. And there he's describing the form of the Lord, and the Lord has 4 hands. And of course, other features are really beautiful. But I was thinking, is that the form I should meditate on, or should try to think of these verses or not? Is that proper or not? So I was thinking maybe I'm thinking too much there in that sense. That
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, the names that we chant, the forms that we meditate on, the stories that we hear should all be congruent. As the heart of our sadhana bhajan. We may have other sorts of things that are supportive, like I have a desire to learn Gajendra's prayers, because there's just some very nice prayers in there. But that wouldn't be like the crux of my meditation or prayer life, let's say, if I were going to offer stutis from the Bhagavatam. But rather, having a sense of my ultimate aspiration, then the form of that aspiration, the stories of that aspiration, and the names of that aspiration, they should all kind of match. And you say, well, I'm not qualified. That's how you're going to become qualified. So we become qualified by Sangha. So there's like Prabhupada's, the Leelas there where some devotee was saying, Prabhupada, I don't know how I become qualified. And Prabhupada cut him off and said, you're not qualified. I gave you your qualification. So the way we become qualified is through sadhu sangha, right? That is our philosophy. Krishna bhakti jalamulahai sadhu sangha. So we become qualified by sadhu sangha. So to hear from those pure sadhus and the Srimad Bhagavatam, like the gopis, for example, then that means we're also doing sadhu sangha, shastriya sadhu sangha. So by that sangha, we'll become more qualified by associating with those vibrations and we have at least a little flame. It may not be a fully manifest fire yet, but we have the flame of an aspiration for some form of pure devotion. So we should associate with the fire of pure devotion until it embraces us, so to speak, at the state of Bhav Bhakti. So that way we show like, this is what I want. Well, what is the proof that that's what you want? Well, these are those type of prayers that I offer. This is the form that I worship. This is the name that I chant. So this is the proof that this is what I want. This is the yajna I'm performing. This is the hill I want to die on. And take it from there. At the very least, if we don't, if we can't convince the internal energy to embrace us at the end, at the very least, in the state of Bhav Bhakti, at the very least, we create the Bhakti Vasanas that will be conducive for continued work thereafter. And they'll be very powerful because that's what we decided to pour into our cup, so to speak, the cup of our psyche or antakarana. So I never get discouraged by this whole you're not qualified thing. I'm like, okay. And like, what's your point? If you're going to allow that to discourage you from approaching God, then maybe you don't need to be approaching him in that particular way. And so you can do you, but Mahaprabhu's movement is very magnanimous from what I've been hearing all these years. So my disqualification is not told to be a discouraging factor. Or rather, I should just try to run after the truth.
Thank you, Prabhu, for this encouraging words. And then I had a reflection to share. You know, we were talking about to Mukunda's point that never hartam abhidatum vai, that how Queen Kunti is praying that one is she's sharing how one is not able to really pray from the heart because of all these material achievements and things and goods. That movie of Saint Francis of Assisi, what's that? The Brother Moon's Son, something like that. In that movie you see that those saints, they deliberately choose living a lifestyle of a mendicant, by giving up their goods. And we see also Jagannath Goswami deliberately giving up the things they have. Whereas on the contrary, what we usually hear the message in the Krishna consciousness movement is that you deliberately accept those things for serving Krishna. Quite the opposite. So, but I was thinking there is definitely value to maybe sometimes forcing ourselves. And I see myself in future maybe thinking of different ways in which I can force myself to give up those things, because I don't see those things going away. They just keep on adding more and more as we go by. The opulence keeps on increasing, as we say. So
yeah, it's a very interesting reflection. I said there could be a period of life. If we think of life in the sort of classical 4 periods, then there's a period of life for accepting objects, and we should accept them with the principle of service of Krishna as a guiding light for that. But as you, I think, rightfully deduce, at least for most of us, according to our Harikar, we're not qualified to have too much stuff for too long if we're interested in really developing our inner world. Otherwise, it's just too distracting, like in a very practical way. But there's supposed to be a period for letting go also, vanaprastha. Vanaprastha is like, okay, I did my, work for a period of time. I gave my sort of contribution to my community, to my world, whatever, for a period of time. Now there's a time for contracting from the world, a time for contraction, and breaking that sort of contract with the world. And I also agree, like, at least it would be nice to see more examples of that. Let me put it that way. It would be nice to see more examples of people saying, like, now it's just time for my inner life. Like, death is actually approaching. I'm getting old. And death is approaching. Now I need to really focus on my inner life. It would be nice to see that example more, for sure. I think what it is, a part of what it is that we don't have many outstanding examples of grihastas in sacred texts aside from Kshatriyas. And in the Gaudiya literatures, the personalities that are glorified the most are the mendicants. So it's not like we have loads of information of how we might navigate that stage of life of accepting things in a way that we can like exhaust the desire for that and just like let it go. And so I think there's a little bit of like, yeah, we don't have full guidance in that department as a community or as a collective. As a general rule of thumb, though, keep it simple as possible. I would say, at least, I think what's practical for most people is like whatever you get by providence, you should be satisfied with that. So by providence, don't like keep trying to like upbuild it more and more and more and more. Like, I have one devotee friend here in New York. He wants to start this business, and it's just like a desire for. I was like, well, how much money you want to make by such and such time? He's like, well, something like 500 million. I'm like, I was like, nigga. I was like, bro. I was like, I think you need to scale down a little bit. And so he tried one business venture, didn't really work out exactly, but he still has like the strong desire for that. He has some really nice job now, like quite lucrative, but he's like, I think they should pay me more, and then I'm going to start my own, do this, that, and the other. And I was like, well, where are you going to get time for your inner life, which is like struggling quite a bit? Like, scale it down. Just be satisfied with what you get by providential arrangement, like what you don't have to work too hard for. And that usually leaves a lot of time open for other stuff in your inner world. That seems practical enough. And then if we're serious about spiritual life, that seriousness will transform into like letting go in a serious way. But if we're not that serious, at least don't bury yourself in things. Whatever you get by providential arrangement, be satisfied with that. That way you won't be buried. And you just do your harikata. And then if you catch fire suddenly, then you're not buried. So then you can turn into a big flame and then do the needful. If you're serious, you'll already do the needful. So yeah, I mean, that's what I would try. I probably would advise people like that. Just don't bury yourself. Whatever providence arranges, be satisfied with that. Don't bury yourself in things. Otherwise, I want to say thank you. So some of you have given donation for me getting another computer. Very grateful for that. And I will use it for that purpose soon enough. But a part of me thinking about, should I even get one? The quality of my existence has already been destroyed sufficiently. Maybe this is Krishna's way of giving me a way out. My mind's been going there a little bit, but anyway.
No, a better way to respond to that is to think maybe you should move to Michigan and stay with us. That might be Krishna's way of, not get a laptop. That's not, I wouldn't do that.
That is interesting.
Stay here.
That is interesting consideration.
Live on a farm with Siddha. You two sadhus can live together with, and just, there you go.
And then
Perfect
someone else
resting.
can use their laptop to broadcast you to the rest of us.
There you go.
Yeah, that
That's
would be
what Radha
nice,
Ji was
honestly.
for.
I was like,
That
I
was
would really
what
like to
Radha
have
Ji was
an
for.
acolyte nearby, and I could just use his computer. And that way I'm just like saved.
Yeah, like when I first
his life
joined
may be
the
ruined,
temple,
but my life will be saved.
I remember when I first joined the temple, you threw away your phone, and so everybody would call me 10 times a day. Like, we need Jaya on the altar. We need Jaya to do this. We need Jaya to do that. Anyway, side note.
Don't get buried, y'all. We may not be that serious, but at least don't get buried by things. Keep it simple as you can, reasonably. All right, so we'll finish here.
Wait, I just had one thing.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Real quick thing. When you were talking about the gopis and how they wanted to commit suicide, but they didn't because, Krishna was going to be back in only a few days, and I was thinking, wasn't their thinking even more selfless than that? Like, didn't they, not commit suicide because they were thinking how hurt Krishna would be if
Yeah, sure. That is also true.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that is also true.
They were thinking both things then, right? Both things?
Yeah, sure. Mm-hmm. The emotional landscape is complex. It's a tapestry of emotions, right? That is called Vyabhichari Bhavas. So like looking at a painting or a tapestry, it's got all these different elements in it.
Yes.
So, yeah, all of this. There's a nice prayer. I was looking at some of the poems of Vidyapati. Mahaprabhu used to like to hear the prayers of Vidyapati, Chandidas, Jaya Devi Goswami. So last month, I was looking at some of the poems of Vidyapati. I was trying to find a book on them. And a lot of the poems are very like, they have like an amative or a very strong amorous tone to it. So, which is why Mahaprabhu relished them in relationship to Radha Krishna Lila. And it's not even clear at least from scholarly perspective, it's not clear that he was necessarily like a bhakta. It seemed like, anyway, it's interesting. And because I was looking at some of his prayers or poems, they're like just short poems. And just some of them very touching. He has one poem there called like Tomorrow. And, how this tomorrow is maintaining the life of the gopis. I don't know. I don't remember the full poem. It's extremely, it was extremely moving though. I read it I was just reading it over and over and over again. And it's a strong amative tone to it, but very moving tone, giving us a little bit of insight into the tapestry of emotions of these gopis and how they deal with the suffering of God hiding from them, so to speak. Dark light was the language I was using for today's class. Okay, I'm gonna pause here.
Prabhu, I WhatsApped to you, okay? I WhatsApped you earlier.
I saw that. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Yes, and And thank you to all you guys being my continued guardian angels, not only helping me to get a computer if necessary, but also engaging me in Hari Kata, the real guardianship that anyone can be for anyone. Is engage them in Hari Kata by lending your ears. I'll see you tomorrow. Hari Om Tat Sat. We'll try to finish these prayers, provided I get sufficient time to study them today. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Go Premanandi. Hari Hari Bolo. Later.